Welcome to BAM, Badass Moms with Lori and Jenny. We are moms on a mission to share women's stories about life, fitness, aging, relationships, travel, and much more. Hello, friends, and thanks for listening. I just wanted to take a second to give you a quick reminder about subscribing to the show. If you have not already, just take a moment and do so. This will make sure that you never miss a daily bite or an upcoming episode. And in addition to that, if you have a few extra moments and like to drop us a review, we'd really appreciate it. And there's also a sponsor of the show located at the bottom of all of our episodes. Once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for being badass. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the BAM with Lori and Jenny. Today, we have such a special guest. Not only is Katie Stoddard a badass mom, she's also a mother to 3 children who happen to be at the same school as my kiddo and friends with my kiddo. So I'm very excited to have her on the show. Today, we are going to hear about all of her exciting things that have led to her current now, owning her own business, being a mom, and all the things she juggles. Really excited to have you on the show, Katie. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So I thought it'd be fun if we kind of kick things off today. If you want to start off and tell us about kind of the journey that's led you to owning your business, what your business is, but more importantly, like how you got there and all the things you had to juggle.
Yeah, it's interesting because I really didn't kind of set out to start running a marketing agency, but my entire career path and kind of the decisions I made in my life really got me here. I think there was always this feeling inside that I wanted to do my own thing and wanted to start my own business. I just never knew what it was. And I was kind of waiting for this perfect moment or this idea of like something to spark and say, this is what you should do. But really, I think all the things I was doing along the way were leading me there. And so I actually started out as a teacher. I taught middle school in Cherry Creek, south of Denver, and realized after a couple of years, it just was not the right position for me. But I still cared about education and really loved the work I was doing. And so I wanted to stay connected somehow and just figure out kind of what that path looked like. So I ended up going to a publishing company based in Longmont at the time. And I was an editor there. I loved that job. I got to work on really cool products for classrooms. And I kind of from there just found my love of education, publishing, and professional learning and bounced around in a couple different companies over the next decade or so, and just kind of kept doing that. And I spent some time in content development and editorial and acquisitions, and then eventually in marketing, where I really found a strength of mine and a passion. And so I was there. I ended up deciding to leave the publisher that I was at, and I moved to a nonprofit in Denver. I think at the time, this was like 2019, I was just feeling that bug of like, I want to do something different. I want to feel.
Have you met
really
Jenny and I, Katie? Have you met us? That's our
I know. I'm laughing because we can totally relate.
Yes, I know. And it's like, so I went to this nonprofit doing really, really amazing work. And it was just like, had this feeling of like, I know I should be excited about this, but I'm still feeling that. And I'm juggling. At the time, I had 3 little kids. I had twins who were not quite 5, and I had a 3-year-old. And I was commuting to my job every day. My husband was working. We were balancing nannies and au pairs. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And so I just like and it was right after Christmas break, 2019. So it was like early 2020, before like we all knew the pandemic was a real thing. Yeah. And I quit. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I just need to do something else. And I literally quit with nothing else lined up. I think my husband was terrified, but
I was just going to ask how he responded. Like, how did he support you? Was it good, or was he like?
That's a good question. He was I think he like questioned it with a couple of things, but he was really supportive at the end of the day. And I kind of came to him with like, here's what my plan is going to be. And here's what I think it'll look like. At the time, all 3 kids were in preschool. And so I at least had a couple hours a day, and I felt like I could make it work. And I had a lot of contacts, having so many jobs over the last couple of years in this industry. And so I figured I'd freelance and I'd figure something out and make it work and go from there.
See, I love that. I love, because we've had other people on the show too that have had that like aha moment where it's like, I think Nicoa was one of them, right, Jenny, where she had been in the corporate world forever and she was just like, yeah, I'm done. Like she just had a moment where she's like, yeah, I don't have anything planned, but I'm just doing it because I think you hit that moment in your life where you're like, this just isn't right. And I don't want to invest any more of my time, my energy, my commute to this. And, you know, loving what you were doing, you knew that there was still opportunity just on your own terms.
Exactly. And I just found,
I feel like
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I feel like there's just this intuitive pull that gets louder and louder and louder. And then all of a sudden you're like, I can't ignore it anymore, you know?
Exactly.
So it may seem sudden, but I feel like it's building up in you for a while. And then all of a sudden it's like, you can't ignore it.
Yes, I know. I absolutely agree. And I think like for me in this specific one, the previous job before I started the nonprofit, I was at a publisher that I loved for almost 8 years. And I think that was like, I knew I needed to do something different. And that's when I went to the nonprofit. And so it was almost like easier to take like a baby step away from that and then make the big leap. But for me, it was really like I was barely seeing my kids. I was just busy all the time. You know, weekends were spent cleaning and grocery shopping and all the things. And it was a lot. So I quit. I was terrified come March because I had no clue what was going to happen. I mean, the whole world didn't know what was going to happen, but I just, you know, in hindsight, again, it was a blessing because all of a sudden I had 3 kids home because school was closed and I was able to spend that time with them. And, you know, like as funny and as weird as that time was, like we all like look back and have some fun memories. And I would have never had that kind of time at home with my 3 little kids if I hadn't quit at that time. So.
Oh, that's good.
So one of the things about me, like I've always been really scrappy and like I've always been able to like make it work or find some kind of side gig or, you know, do something that's just like in my nature. And so honestly, when I made the decision to leave that nonprofit, I was already like my wheels were spinning, like who am I going to call? Like, what am I going to do? And again, like being in this world for so long and having a lot of different author contacts and things like that, I was able to secure my first client before my 2 weeks notice was even up.
So you weren't feeling as nervous about it.
Yeah.
Like you were like, okay, I've got some clients on tap. Like it wasn't just completely jumping into the ocean with no life jacket.
Yes, exactly. And even when I gave my notice at my company, they asked if I would stay on as a consultant for a couple months and just continue to do a little bit of the work. We were launching a big project. So yes, I left honestly like first day of the business, which I consider January 28th, 2020, I had like 2 or 3 clients already lined up and ready to go. And kind of work started really quickly. I think what I felt was, you know, because of that, I always felt like anything could go away at any time. These are contracts. This is new. Like I'm just kind of getting my feet wet. Like I've done this work, but now I'm off on my own, doing it on my own. And so that was kind of that idea of, I felt like I couldn't say no to anything, and kind of how this went from this freelance career to a full-fledged business before the end of 2020. And part of what happened there was, as we all know, schools shut down in March, and quickly after that, there was a lot of federal funding made available to schools to help figure out how to manage COVID and distance learning and just everything that goes along with teaching kids virtually. And so a lot of just companies in this education space were frantic and needed to put out products that were going to support schools where they were at that very moment. And so I was able to kind of jump in and connect with some folks that I'd known in the past, or some companies that I'd worked with or worked alongside. And that's really kind of where we started building and had this fortunate piece of, you know, an influx of money in the industry that I was really specializing in.
Well, and you hear that a lot, like on both sides. You know, I think it was a time where it crushed, like being in the fitness industry, it like literally crushed my business. But, and, you know, on the flip side, I think in a lot of businesses, it really like took you to the next level, right? Like it gave you the opportunity to capitalize on, remote learning. And I think, it was a very interesting time, and I think it crushed a lot of businesses, but it helped a lot of businesses thrive. So I think you had no idea what was in store with COVID, but it was kind of like the perfect storm of like, if you were going to jump off and do it, it was kind of worked out okay, right?
Exactly. And in hindsight, that was great. I think early March 2020, I was a little panicky, but it all worked out. So
no, for sure. So let's go back and kind of talk about when you were in the thick of having your kids. Now you have you have 3 kids. You have 2 that are twins, boy and girl. And then your other son, who is just about a year and a half ish younger.
Yep.
How did you juggle when they were little, having twins? I'm always fascinated by twins because I'm always like, how do people do it? And then, then you have another one. Now you have 3. Like, tell us a little bit about that experience of, having, twins and raising all your kiddos.
Sure. So we did go through fertility treatment to get pregnant with our twins. So it wasn't a big shock. Everyone asked, like, were you shocked when you found out they were twins? And we kind of knew, and we were really hoping for twins because we thought it could be our only shot actually, at having a family. And so, we were very grateful. And so we knew literally from like day one, right? It was going to be twins, or had a good chance of being twins. And I told Lori and Jenny this earlier, but we actually, from all the ultrasounds, we thought we were having 2 girls. And it wasn't until we were in the delivery room having the babies that the first one came out and was a boy. And that was like the biggest shock and just so fun though at the same time. But I was sitting there before I delivered my now daughter thinking like, please let the second one be a girl, because like everything we have is pink and purple and all the clothes and like everything. So it was funny, but it worked out and it's great now. And so yeah, honestly, like I think, knowing that you're having twins and preparing as much as we could, what we would hear from a lot of our friends who had twins, and we joined like a twins mom group, everyone said like, keep them on a schedule, like do everything that you can. Like if one wakes up, wake the other one up, like don't let them, keep you up all night long. And so literally from day one, they were on a schedule. And it just made it so easy, and they were good sleepers and they were good eaters, and we didn't really have a lot of challenges, honestly, when they were babies. So if anything, it was like relatively easy, like in quotations, but, any baby is difficult, like when you don't have that experience, but it was so fun. And we just felt so fortunate and grateful that we went from a family of 2 to a family of 4 in like a matter of whatever. So
I always said if I had twins, I'd want to have the twins first, because I can't imagine having one and knowing how like that is, and then having twins on top of that.
Yes, I know that is the thing. Like, I think when people say like, how did you do it with 2? It's like, well, we didn't know any better. Yeah. And it was really like, we just made them do everything together. But yes, I agree. Like, and honestly, I always say like Charlie was the hardest of all of them, because we had such like this schedule with the twins. And then Charlie came along. The twins were 17 months old when he was born. He was our surprise, but we're so grateful for him. We knew we wanted to try to grow our family. We just thought we'd have to go through fertility again, and we didn't. And he came along and honestly just like didn't sleep, like wanted to do his own thing, which is very Charlie, if you know him. And so, that was a little hard for a while. Like when I was on maternity leave, with him, and I worked for an amazing company at the time that let me take a 5-month maternity leave.
Oh, wow.
And, I was like, I'd be up all night with him, like I had to hold him so he'd sleep a little bit. And then the twins were 18 months old, and they're like ready to go, and it's 7 a.m. That was rough.
So you didn't sleep for like 3 years of your life.
I know.
So when you found out you were pregnant with him, like how surprised were you? Tell us about that moment.
I was very, very surprised because, like I said, we went through fertility. We didn't think we could get pregnant. And I mean, it was, like we were very excited when we found out for sure. But I think we were just in shock because we had 9-month-old twins and we were like, how did, like, what?
Yeah.
I remember, like, I have to say, this is so funny. And like, he's going to die that I didn't say this, but I had been on a business trip like that week before. I traveled a lot for my company back then. And I got home and I was like, I think I need to do a pregnancy test. Like, I think, and it was positive. And my husband was like, maybe just because like you haven't seen our kids for a long time, like extra hormones.
That's not how it works.
And I'm like, I don't think so. But it was a surprise. And at that time, I was kind of grateful that it wasn't twins, I have to say.
Yes. Oh my gosh. 2 sets of twins.
I mean, I know. Yeah. So it was all fun and, busy, but
with the kids growing up, what was the dynamics then? So you had the twins and then you had Charlie. Do you feel like he ever felt left out not being a twin? Or do you think he thought it was kind of cool that he was just like, hey, I'm going to do my own thing and like people,
Yeah. No, it's funny. It's yes and no. I think because they're so close in age, like the twins don't even remember a time before Charlie.
Yeah.
And so, like we always joke, like we don't have that like middle child, oldest child syndrome because everyone just kind of got lumped together. And so, like Charlie, I will say Charlie is definitely the baby in our family still. But I don't think, like I think he's fine. Like he's never like there were a couple times when he was little. I remember we got a Christmas card once and it was friends of ours who had who live across the country, so the kids haven't met them much. But they had their son is like a day different, like a day older than Charlie. And I told him, I was like, oh, Weston is really similar in age to you. It's like he's your twin. And like he grabbed that Christmas card and slept with it for like a month because it was his twin. And it was very sweet. So, but I don't think, I think, like he's really close with both of them. And I think definitely him and Will have a really great, relationship as brothers being so close in age. But also Mimi and Charlie, like they just like click. They're so alike, which is really funny. And actually in our house, we only have 2 kid bedrooms and Mimi and Charlie chose to share a bedroom.
Oh, that's so
instead
cute.
of the boys or instead of the twins. So Will really wanted his own space and Mimi and Charlie get along well. And we've talked about, we have space to add a 3rd bedroom and neither of them want to separate yet. And so
How old
maybe
are
down
they
the road, but what's that?
How old are they now?
The twins are 9 and Charlie's he'll turn 8 in a couple weeks.
Oh my gosh. And so are they 1 school year apart?
They're actually 2, how it ended up working. So the twins are in 4th grade, but they are definitely near the youngest in their grade. And then Charlie's in 2nd and he's one of the older ones. He'll be turning 8 here. In a couple weeks.
I have to laugh because, my son Wyatt, he has a stepbrother that's 16, but that's something he always throws him. He's like, I don't have anybody to share a room with. I'm like, would you really like to share a room
I know.
with brother? He goes, well, no, but I mean, nobody that's like close in my age. I'm like, well, the cat sleeps with you.
I was going to say, he's got animals.
Right. But I'm always like, if I think some kids thrive with having, like you said, with your kiddos, like they want a roommate. And then you have some kids that like want their own space, right? Yeah. So I think you always think you want what you don't have. But I'm very curious, like if you really would thrive, and he's pretty like particular, so I'm thinking he having his own room is probably best. Like
the girls they each have their own room, but they slept in the same bed. They would, my youngest would sleep in my oldest in her room. And they slept in the same bed. I think my older one kicked her out when she was, going into 6th grade. And my younger one was so devastated. But even on like, holidays like Christmas, the night before Christmas, they'll sleep in the same bed or whatever. So it's cute.
Yeah, ours they have sleepovers and they'll come in their room or the loft. They'll go hang out there and sleep.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, while all this was going on with your kids, raising your kids, doing your business, your husband obviously being very supportive. Was he ever nervous with you? Like, has he ever been an entrepreneur on that side of things? Or was he nervous for you? Was he excited? Like, what were his feelings going through all of this, do you think?
I think he was always really excited and supportive. I think, again, with when I decided to, well, I'll backtrack a second. When I left the company I was at for 8 years to go to the nonprofit, that was honestly probably a bigger shift than when I quit all in. Partially because that company, it was a private company. They had amazing benefits, and I, had pretty high salary and high pay and compensation at that company. And then when I went to a nonprofit, I took a cut, but I just felt like I needed something different. That's why I almost feel like by doing that, by leaving this great safety net of a company and going to the nonprofit was almost that stepping stone of then being able to eventually quit. When I told him, I was like, I really want to quit, and he saw it, and he definitely, and there were, some things that just weren't working, I think too, with this nonprofit and the role. And so he saw my stress and just frustration and being there. So he supported it. I mean, he definitely was like, are you sure? We were in, we still had 3 kids in preschool and daycare that we're paying for and nannies. And so, but like I said, I, am always that planner and thinker, and I was trying to figure out how I can make it work. And at the end of the day, he didn't question it. He wasn't upset. And, we went for it. And then, he was very, very supportive of it the whole way. So at the time he was still actually working in an office. It was then when COVID started, he started working from home, and their office never opened back up. And so, what we would do is he would work all day. I would, be kind of that stay-at-home mom role because our kids were all home. We pretended to do virtual school. It did not work.
As much as you can with littles.
Yeah. And then I would, he'd end his day around 4 or 5, and I would work for a couple hours. I'd work on the weekends. I'd sometimes get up really early and work in the morning. So we just made it work. And, he had some flexibility. So if I had to take a call or something, he could do it. Eventually during COVID, when it got kind of that second part, when the next school year started and the twins were going into kindergarten, we ended up getting a part-time nanny because at that point, the business had grown enough and I needed to focus a little bit more during the day. And the first part of COVID was over. So it was a little bit less terrifying at the time. Yeah, right. So we brought a nanny in, and that helped a little bit, but yeah, he's always been so supportive of everything. He's, it's always a wild ride of I have to take calls at funny times or work on weekends or go see a client. And he's always been, I mean, even before the business, when I was just working, for different companies, he's a great dad. He is 100% committed to being my partner in this. And so, it's not about him stepping up or anything like that. Yeah. He's already doing that stuff. It's just he's supporting me while we do it. So.
Does he have a traditional kind of 9 to 5-ish, 8 to 6 type job?
Right. No, he did. He actually, he was let go this summer. His company he works in tech, for a software company. They do layoffs all the time, as tech companies do. And he got caught up in that in end of May this year. And so he's been looking lots and lots of interviews. But the nice thing is he's actually been able to come help me with the business a little bit, supporting some of our dashboards for clients and just more marketing data analysis work. So that's been nice, and him having some flexibility, but I'm sure he'll be going back soon, hopefully.
Yeah. I think, the guys that we end up with, our husbands, they realize that when they met us, you have that kind of mentality of I'm not going to be happy ultimately unless I'm doing something I truly am passionate about. And I think they know that when they sign up for it because they know who we are. So that no matter what, they're going to be there to support you. They may kind of give you a funny look now and then when you say you're going to try something new or what, but ultimately that us being happy, I feel is really important for them. So they are supportive. And I feel we've all been very lucky to find, men like that in our lives that have been there for us and are willing to, support all the ideas and businesses that, we start or want to start. So
Yeah.
I think that's
Yes.
awesome.
And I've had some funny ones along the way. I've always had this bug, and it's so funny because it never crossed my mind, like, open a marketing agency. This is what you do.
Yeah.
And I feel like I just fell into it. But the funny businesses that I've come up with over the years or wanted to launch, so out of left field. And it's like, why
Jenny, we need to spend more time with Katie, because Katie and I are always like, well, what
I know. I know. I feel like, there's so many things I'm like, oh man, I'd love to put this product into the world or do this, or, there's like a billion things. And I feel like maybe someday they all will happen. Maybe it's just a timing thing. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
Jenny and I have gone down many paths, but we're always coming up with ideas. Because what was it, that quote you told me that one time, Jenny, that was like, if you can think of it, it's worth, I don't know, it was really great though. She had thrown out a quote sometime, basically no idea is a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my husband might disagree when some of the ones I came up with, but yeah, I think that if it's if it shows up in your brain, there's a reason, right? So, whether it happens now or later or some iteration of it, who knows?
Right.
It must be needed in the world.
Yeah.
So where you are right now with kind of your next steps in your business, where do you see things going? What are you excited for? What are you looking, forward to for yourself, for your family?
The business we're about to celebrate our 5-year anniversary, which is so crazy.
That's awesome.
We have a full team right now. There's 10 of us in total. I actually brought on a partner earlier this year. And so that's been really exciting as well. She's been with me since 2021, I believe. And so she's been part of the team, and then she officially came on as a partner. And we continue to grow and really kind of make a name for ourselves in this space, and continue to get more clients and just grow the team and all that. So I'm excited to continue to see that grow. I know 5 years is great, but it still feels like we're an infant and there's so much we need to do and figure out. And then this past year, we launched kind of a new arm of the business called Ed to Grow. So Ed to Market is a marketing agency for companies in the K-12 space who are selling products and services to schools. Ed to Grow is kind of more that family or parent facing community. And we really kind of created it to be more of that community or resource for families. Part of where this kind of started is we get lots of people filling out forms on our website about our services. And a lot of them are apps or other ed tech products who are trying to sell to families. And it's a really hard market to kind of get in front of specifically. When you're thinking about parents of school age children. And then when we kind of started digging into this a little bit more, we realized there's not a lot of resources out there for parents to think about, if you're let's say you have an elementary aged kiddo and they're struggling with math facts or struggling with getting excited about reading, there's a million apps out there, and you might ask your teacher and they might say oh, you could try this one or that one, but really knowing what's going to work, what your kid's going to like those are the things that there's just so much noise out there. We wanted to create this spot where parents can come and feel supported and also feel oh, I'm going to search around for these kinds of apps or these kinds of tools and read real reviews and kind of test things out before I just up and go download 6 different things on my kid's iPad. So
you didn't have to go back and delete. I've done that. I do that with games all the time. I'm oh, that looks good. And then I realize these are horrible. But you're just randomly oh, this rating and that. And you're but you really have no background.
There's just so much out there. That's the thing. It's there's so much out there and it can be so overwhelming. So if you can help people figure out what is best for them and their kid, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's what we've been growing for the last six months or so. We have lots of content on there, so lots of articles, videos, things like that on how to keep your kid motivated about reading over Christmas break, or ways to think about math and everyday life, just things like that are like real topics that like even myself, like I work in this education space and I'm still struggling with it. Like my kids come home and I'm like, you need to read for 20 minutes and I'm fighting about it. And so just trying to like find resources to help make that whole part of learning easier on parents.
Yeah,
and so there's that when, like we go to conferences and teachers say like you need to be reading every night and we're like, oh yeah, so.
You not tell them what you do. You're like, I'm not going to tell you what I do for a living. Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part is like motivating. You want everything to be fun, right? Like, but I think it's a good age too to like, and they realize this. So like, not everything is fun, but there's value in everything, right? Especially learning. It's like after break, going back to school, there was like, oh, I don't want to go to school. I'm like, yeah, but you do. Like, you do want to go to school. You want to go see your friends, and you're excited to learn, although you're not necessarily like, oh, I'm excited to go do math or read, but you are. So I think it's an interesting, like, how do you kind of tweak the message, so that they are like, oh yeah,
yeah, exactly. Intrinsic motivation. So.
Yep.
So on a personal level, do you have anything on tap that you're excited for coming up, trips or just like fun things that you've kind of been looking forward to? I'm a big fan of like what's Jenny actually is going to Costa Rica, right?
Ooh, nice.
2 days. I'm going in 2 days. I can't wait.
Gosh, I'm jealous. We've got a couple of trips planned, but some of it is we're just kind of seeing how things go, and like fingers crossed that my husband does get a job soon.
Yeah.
But we do. My family all lives in Chicago, and so my nieces who are in high school are performing in their choir at Disney World over spring break. Do that for part of spring break. We're gonna go to Mexico with some friends. We've got this Alaska cruise planned for next summer. So
that's awesome.
Kind of just like I have this goal for the kids to see all 50 states before Charlie graduates high school. So that is my goal. We are not. I mean, we're probably at like 18 or 20. So we got a lot.
I want you to come back and tell it, like maybe when you're halfway through, come back and we'll talk just about your travels with the kids.
Okay.
That would be amazing. I think that's one of the best things you can do for them.
I know. I love travel. I love experiences. And I always say like, we never regret that. Right. Like, I mean, I know there's always things you can spend money on that are different, but like those experiences, like even the ones that the kids don't totally remember, we love looking at pictures and talking to them about the trips. And so
I haven't been to all 50 states. I'm going to have to use that as motivation.
Yeah. Yes. I even bought this. It's somewhere behind me. It's like this 50 state journal where you can like add pictures and talk about the trip. I think I've filled it out like once, but I'll get there. And I haven't told the kids about it. So my goal is that like after they're like gone to college and come back or something, then I'll share this like amazing journal.
I love it.
See, I love that too. And I always like, I feel like with travel, I'm always like, oh, I want to go to like all these huge places international. But I think there is so much awesome stuff just like right around
local.
Us.
Yeah.
It's like, I need to just like kind of train my brain that like, you don't have to go to Europe. You don't have to go to I mean, all those are wonderful. Don't get me wrong. But like, you can go to all these cool places like New York and, all these.
Do you know we have, do you guys have Apple TV? Either one of you?
Yeah.
Okay. So it has like the nature pictures that pop up, like if it's like sleeping or whatever, then there's a picture that pops. It's actually several pictures that pop up, but every time I'm like, oh my God, that is so stunning. Where is that? And I look at it and it's Yosemite and I'm like, I've got to go to Yosemite. I've never been. And every picture I see from there, I'm like, that place looks incredible. And that is not far.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't been either, but same. And I haven't like in fourth grade, our kids get these free national park passes, and I'm like, we need to be using those. We haven't even like signed up for it yet, but we need to do that.
That's super cool.
And then I think one of the questions that I always like to end on is, what are you most proud of? And it's kind of a tricky question, but
yeah, I was thinking about that. I think there's a lot of things. I think at the end of the day, I am most proud that my kids get to see me doing something that I care about and that I'm successful at and that I feel good about and that I'm proud of and that they get to see that. And, like running a business is busy, but there's also a lot of flexibility there where I get to take them to school and pick them up every single day. There are some times that I've got a meeting or something, but at the end of the day, if I had to, I can. And we get to cart them around to soccer and dance and Lego league and all the things. But they also get to see that, like, while I get to be a mom and a parent, I also get to run a business and do some really cool things. So
yeah, that's awesome. I think it's, showing them what's possible.
Exactly.
Before we end today, Katie, I want you to go ahead and plug your website. So if parents are interested in checking out your offerings, they can do that.
Yeah. If you go to it's ED, like as in education, to the number 2 and then grow.com. It's free. Everything is free for parents. So there's a resource library so you can kind of filter and search for the types of products or resources that you're looking for. Tons of content. We're on all social channels, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, all the things I'm sure I'm missing. But anyways, it's really meant to be a community for parents. We also do like giveaways all the time that are sponsored by our amazing advertisers in there. Would love to have you check it out, join our community. We do not over email or anything like that. We send like 2 newsletters a month that are really, really content focused. So would love to have you join.
Awesome.
And it's really meant for parents of K-12 kids. And so there's even things on there like as you're navigating college and financial aid and ACT, SAT prep, anything like that. And so it's like we're staying away from like parenting. It's really about like supporting the growth of your student or your kid's education after the school day ends.
Katie, it's been wonderful chatting with you today. Such a pleasure. Thank you so much for giving us your time and letting us learn more about who you are, what you've accomplished, and what you have on tap. We look forward to following your journey further and just looking forward to all the amazing that you have yet in store. Thank you so much.